Well, g'day everybody. It's really nice to be here with everybody in Hanoi. I want to do something maybe a little bit different today. And in that sense, really kind of focus and hone in on a particular sector or industry that I'm sure a lot of us have quite a bit to do with in this room. Now, the sector that I'm talking about here is the not-for-profit sector. Firstly, I've done a bit of thinking and I've talked to a number of people in the sector to date, and they actually made me aware that the term not-for-profit is slowly disappearing from modern vernacular, shall we say. So there's currently a transition going on away from the not-for-profit sector to the for-purpose sector. So I haven't changed any of the detail in the presentations to that effect, but I just think it's something for us all to be conscious about. Because I think the for-purpose sector is something we're going to hear a lot more of in the months and the years to come. So why? Why did I think this was kind of an interesting topic? I mean, I do think it's interesting. It's an interesting sector. It's got a very diverse stakeholder set that engage with each other in very interesting ways. And perhaps it's the case that sometimes it doesn't always get the attention that it deserves, because it's an industry that is very, very susceptible to a cyber attack or an account data compromise. So as part of this presentation, first we're going to look at the sector, look at some characteristics of it, looking at some common pain points that the sector has challenges in. Then we're going to move to a real-life case study. We're going to look at the Fred Hollows Foundation, the important work that they do in the Pacific, and more importantly, how they've managed to develop a very mature and sustainable compliance program that has safeguarded this really important work. And fundamental to everything we're going to talk about is maintaining the trust of their valued donors and supporters. So, I mean, sorting the formalities out here, my name is Stuart Campbell, as Candace said. I'm the Head of Customer Success at Quasarscan, awesome work on the pronunciation. For reference, we're a cardholder data discovery provider, servicing the world, particularly APAC, through a home base of New Zealand, Wellington, New Zealand to be specific. So that's why I speak a little bit weird and quite quickly at times. So I'm going to try my best to slow things down, everybody, but apologies if it doesn't always happen, because we like to jump over words quite a bit. I'm just really excited to be here. This is my second PCI APAC community meeting after being in KL last year. First time presenting, so it's really nice to be with you all here. Okay, jumping straight into it. So I suppose the first thing I'd say about the industry is that charities come in all different shapes and sizes and are diverse by nature. You have very small organisations addressing a very community-based need in a very small part of a country or even an economy, right through to global organisations addressing a global need on a global scale, and certainly anything in between. So it's diverse in how it's set up. Globally, just some really quick stats I've got there. In 2023, the sector's market size topped $289 billion US. So certainly not the biggest sector in the world, but of scale and certainly of importance. And something that we're going to talk about quite a bit during this presentation is they certainly are organisations who rely on the goodwill and the trust of volunteers, supporters and donors to function. That is these organisations' lifeblood and how they operate. Now, talking to the sector and organisations within it, there are certainly some common challenges that I've noted and that we see. I'll quickly go through those ones. So there's 5 key ones, not an exclusive list by any stretch of the imagination. Number 1 is budget constraints. Charities are not commonly cash-rich organisations. They have to borrow, they have to save, they have to fundraise, they have to make every single dollar or dong, considering where we are, count towards the ultimate vision. Number 2 is technology constraints. Very often we see organisations in the not-for-profit sector have quite a dated technology stack. Not only that, but they've certainly got commonly only one key person or a very small team who is responsible for managing and maintaining that stack. So that signifies both technology and key person risk, as you could imagine. 3, heavy reliance on service providers. Linked to the one above, there's generally quite a few key service providers that take a lot of take responsibility of a lot of these organisations' core business, and then you've got a lot of other smaller third-party service providers over the top. So being able to manage those relationships, manage the delivery, is really critically important to what they do. High dependency on donor trust, said that, we'll say it again before the end's out, and commonly viewed as low-hanging fruit. So bad actors know this stuff. We've seen when things have gone wrong, and they do target small, big, all sorts of charities to try and disrupt things and to do harm. Notable insights really quickly. Now this is in my own backyard of Australia and New Zealand. The first two stats are quite interesting, where it says only 43% of NFPs invested in cyber in the last 2 years. That's a challenge. And only 37% did not have effective procedures to detect and report data breaches. However, probably the most alarming of those statistics is the last one. That told us that 1 in 5 Australian charities and not-for-profits fear a cybersecurity attack would devastate their organisation. I think that's a good reason to pause for thought. We can all imagine if 20% of the country or the sector or the world's charities had challenges and were devastated, that would have a substantial impact on the world and the work that they do. Not to labour the point too much, but when things do go wrong, and they have gone wrong consistently, end up on the news pretty quick. This is also my part of the world. Okay, so now we've understood the sector, we've understood some characteristics and some challenges. Now I just really want to spend some time talking about a case study, and the organisation that we're going to talk about is the Fred Hollows Foundation of New Zealand. For reference, they are a partner of ours and have been for a number of years. I've made sure to go through this presentation material and other stuff with them to maintain both relevance and accuracy. The foundation itself is a leading charitable organisation whose purpose is to end avoidable blindness and vision impairment in the Pacific. The Pacific is a vast place. Small little island chains, sparsely populated areas. They really struggle for infrastructure, key people and technology to do some things that in more populated parts of the world would be normal. So I won't go into too much detail about their specific work, but they do things like local outreach to remote parts of the Pacific, sourcing of key technology and people, training staff and uplifting the capability of people and organisations in that part of the world to really do some good. The foundation relies on donations from various individuals, groups and organisations to conduct their essential work. That's key, that's their lifeblood, that's really important for them to safeguard. So in lieu of going through absolutely everything they do, I actually think it's really important to focus on one particular case, one particular person, and one particular life that has been changed substantially through the work that the foundation does. And to do that, I draw your attention to this guy. His name is Palfia. He hails from the island of Savaii in the country of Samoa. I should have really put a map up here. Suffice to say, it's in the middle of the Pacific, right? So Samoa is an island-based country. It has 9 islands. 5 of them are inhabited. Last I checked, the total population of the entire place is just over 200,000 people. So in terms of Pacific Island, it actually is of scale. It's more of a medium to large size place. But the nature of where they live, they really struggle with key infrastructure and healthcare. They don't have one trained eye doctor or eye clinic at the time of this, so this is where the foundation certainly comes in. The situation Palfia found himself is quite a tragic one, really. He was a fit, active guy. He was the chief of his village. He was very sought after and well regarded in his community. Savaii is actually, for reference, it's a secondary island about 80 kilometres off the coast of the main island and the main city of Apia in Samoa. So this guy's fit, active, community engaged, minded individual. One day, about 10 years ago, he started going blind. Now, a quick trip to the medical facility that they did have revealed the unfortunate situation where Palfia was suffering from cataracts. For those that don't know what cataracts are, really quickly, I'm not a healthcare professional obviously, it's when the clear lens in your eye starts to go cloudy. Now, interestingly enough, in the populated world, which is what I'm going to call it, it is mostly a treatable condition that can be done really quickly. However, in Savaii, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, where they don't have an eye clinic, let alone an eye doctor, effectively it's a sentence for blindness. Fast forward 10 years, Palfia's been blind for a decade. He hasn't seen his friends, he hasn't seen his family, he hasn't engaged with them due to a completely preventable condition. And this is where the foundation comes in. The foundation sent an outreach team of locally led people to his island and his village in mid-2019, that's certainly it. They were so busy, they were inundated by demand that at the time they could only operate on one of his eyes, and you see that photo there. The good news is, 6 months later, the foundation was able to re-engage with that community and complete restoration to his second eye as well. And the photo that you see there is of Palfia after the second procedure, late 2019, with some pretty cool glasses, which help recovery, I'm told. And I just think it's a good reason to pause for thought, everybody. Like this guy was blind for 10 years from a preventable condition. He couldn't see his friends, he couldn't see his family. And the foundation, through the work that they do, and through the trust and the help of their donors and supporters, were able to change that. He's but one of the many lives who are touched by the foundation's work. I certainly encourage you to go onto their website, and there's plenty more to see and stories to hear for the likes of Powerfair. Now, we've understood the market at certainly a high level. We understood the foundation and the work that they do, which I think is really important. Now, for our purposes, we're going to quickly move on to securing this important work. As you see noted there, in 2018, the foundation embarked on a cyber uplift program which developed a highly mature and effective way to manage PCI DSS compliance. Now, logistically, how did this work? The foundation was very mature in their thought. They understood very quickly compliance was certainly the foundation for some work that needed to happen, and it wasn't just a point-in-time activity. It enabled them to make a complete shift in the mindset of how they dealt with risk and compliance and security more generally. Logistically, this meant very strict and controlled quarterly checks. The whole teams were involved, as you imagine, between internal teams, QSA, vulnerability management, and for our purposes, as Quasar in fact, it meant agreeing on a scope, splitting it up, and then logically working our way through the environment over the course of an assessment year with everybody on board. And getting everyone buy-in is obviously really, really important. This was driven from the exec down. Some observations and takeaways from the great work that the foundation managed to complete. So one, talked about it a little bit, they got the buy-in and the remit. The board understood the work that was happening, the executive team understood the work that was happening. It was on board agendas, it was in annual reports, it was communicated from the very top to everybody across the organisation. And it was amazing to see how that mindset shift happened within a matter of months. Individuals handling or dealing with sensitive information and cardholder data understood the value of what they were effectively safeguarding and looking after. So it was really, really important. Reduce the impact by removing unencrypted data. This is certainly where we helped them out a wee bit. Look, I mean, removing unencrypted data can be easy, and sometimes certainly it is. What the foundation did a little bit differently in a mature way is they took a step back. They weren't just doing 90-day incremental scans, fixing some stuff, wiping it under the carpet and moving on. They spent a great deal of time with their teams understanding where the data was coming from, where it was going to, and what change could they make to address that vulnerability in a way that was enduring. A lot of the time, as you can imagine, this came down to not just technology changes, but people and process changes, interactions with donors and supporters, providing a lot of information, sometimes too much, sometimes in ways they didn't anticipate or didn't even know existed. They took a really mature way of understanding the root cause of those problems and designing a fix that would endure. And I mean, linked with that is that proactive security program that I talked about. Not just project, program that changed the whole mindset of the organisation and how it viewed account data, risk and compliance more generally. Don't take my word for it though. This is a quote from Sharon Orr. She's the Chief Operating Officer of the Foundation and one of our key points of contact. I'll just quickly read through it because I think it is quite important. She noted that when we commenced our PCI DSS compliance journey, it was like trying to complete a jigsaw without knowing you're missing a few pieces. Our partners helped us locate those missing pieces and initiate what has become a very successful and seamless program which ensures we safeguard very sensitive data and maintain the trust of our valued donors. And the end of that sentence is critically important. It shows they really understood what they were doing, they understood the value and the importance of it, both from a sensitive data and a maintaining that trust point of view. She goes on to say, in addition to meeting our PCI DSS compliance requirements, we significantly strengthened our overall cyber risk position to what is now regarded as one of the best in class. So again, the teams understood this was a foundational piece of work that was happening. They managed to shift the mindset in the organisation and use PCI DSS as the starting point for some really, really impressive work. So full credit to them. And Sharon's a great operator. It's awesome to work with her. So we're starting to sum things up now and some key takeaways. Look, there's many, and I've just kind of distilled them down into 4 key ones from what we've talked about. Number 1 is know your risk. Understand what it represents, and before addressing it in a way that is enduring, and that enduring word is really important. Understand vulnerabilities at the root cause, understand the change that you can make that will make a difference in the long term. Spend time with your service providers, spend time with your team, spend time with management and the executive to really hone in on that fix. Number 2, treat compliance as an operational capability, not a point-in-time requirement. I mean, I've talked about this already. It's kind of effectively what they did such a good job of. Number 3 is know your ecosystem. So in a not-for-profit sense, work with donors, sponsors, staff, service providers, and the wider community. Again, something the Foundation did really well. They understood where they stood, they understood how all the stakeholders engaged with each other, what drove them, and they understood the risk between those and how they all engaged. Number 4, I haven't talked about too much, but it's actually a really interesting one that they've really honed into, is market it. You know, include security and compliance progress in industry papers, annual reports, and the wider community. If you talk to the chief of the board and chief executive, they know exactly what's going on in this program of work. They'll tell their donors, they'll tell their supporters, they'll put it in annual publications. Goes a long way towards maintaining the trust of donors, as well as standing out and maybe finding some more big donors in the months and the years to come. So really, really important, and some key takeaways there. And to land on things, I'm just going to go quickly back to the story of Powerfair. I think it's really important when we're engaging with the not-for-profit industry. We could be service providers, supporters, donors ourselves, so many things. Let's never lose sight of the lives and the mission and the vision of these organisations and what they do, because that is certainly what we are safeguarding and what we are supporting in our very important work. So let's never lose sight of the fact that Powerfair can see and spend Christmas with his family for the first time in a decade. This industry certainly needs to succeed, doesn't it? With that, looks like I've done pretty well with time, actually. So thank you very much. It's pretty high level, but if you have any questions, come and find me. I'm around for another couple of hours, I suppose, until this thing wraps up. So thank you very much.